Hi, it's Dwyer, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Also, if you're into fantasy sports and you're looking for a discount for new accounts at fanduel.com, the promo code is Dwyer777. Now let's step on some toes. Sometimes you're going to disagree with the grandmasters of the sport, right? The legends of the sport. Now, Floyd Mayweather came out and said that he likes Canelo's chances against Golovkin, right? Well, that makes one of us. But he likes Canelo's chances against Golovkin. He also doesn't feel that Canelo needs to move up to 160 pounds to fight Golovkin. Now, I have the utmost respect for Floyd Mayweather. He certainly is one of the absolute best fighters I've ever seen in my life. When it comes to great defense, there's really Pernell Whitaker, Floyd Mayweather in my eyes, and then there's everyone else. In fact, there's a third guy, an Argentinian fighter. I can't think of his name right now. To the boxing hardcore, why don't you list him in the comment section to this video? But in my opinion, Mayweather's dead wrong on this one, right? If there's one takeaway from all the videos I do here online that I hope you fully grasp in watching these videos, it's that catch weights are bad for boxing. They're terrible. Right? I don't know what's going on in boxing these days. Real fighters are insisting on catch weights. It's lame. The beauty of boxing is that you can go back through the sport. You could look at guys. You can say, okay, let me compare Sugar Ray Robinson, great welter, right? Welter is really where Robinson was dominant, against Sugar Ray Leonard at welter, right? You want to be able to go back and look at guys and compare them. Carlos Monzon at middleweight with Marvelous Marvin Hagler at middleweight, right? Boxing really shares this with baseball, doesn't it? Where you look at records, you look at eras, and you compare them, right? I was raised in a house where my dad believed in Joe Louis. I believed in Ali, right? Don't get me wrong. Obviously, I respected Joe Louis. He loved Ali too. But, we had our differences in who would win a head-to-head fight, right? The sport loses that. In my opinion, it loses it completely if you suddenly start including catch weights in the conversation. In other words, I can no longer say, hey, here's Ray Robinson's record at 147, right? Suddenly, you're going to have to start to consider the fact that, well, this range of fights had a catch weight of 145. Robinson fought for this title but didn't allow the champ to come in at the title weight. How many of you really feel that Manny Pacquiao was ever the champion at 154 pounds, given that he didn't allow Antonio Margarito to weigh within 2 pounds of the championship weight? Right? So to me, we need to start putting asterisks next to these catch weight fights. Right? We shouldn't be saying things like, oh, this fight's for the middleweight title, but of course, neither fighter was allowed to enter the ring as a middleweight. Come on, what's that about? Right? So to me, right now, Golovkin is one of the best middleweight champions in history. If you want his title, if you want to take the middleweight belt from his waist, you've got to fight him at middleweight. Right? There shouldn't be a question after the fight about how Golovkin would have done if he would have been allowed to weigh in at middleweight. I don't want a 157 fight. I don't want a 158 fight. To me, the Mayweather-Canelo fight is forever tarred by the fact that some genius in Mayweather's camp insisted on Canelo coming in at 152. As dominant as Floyd looked in that fight, the question remains, could Floyd have beaten Canelo at 154? While I believe the answer is yes, right, I don't know that for sure, because even though they officially fought at 154, the fight wasn't at 154. So for history's sake, if we're going to have a real middleweight title defense, if this is something other than an exhibition, if it's going to have the gravitas of a middleweight title fight, Saul Alvarez has to allow both men to weigh in at the middleweight limit. Right? It's different if you could weigh 160, but you choose to come in at 158. Okay, that's fine. Right? Because you had the opportunity to come in at 160. Right? We're really getting confused with semantics here, aren't we? Let's remove the word middleweight from the equation. Right? The fight's for the 160-pound championship. That's what the middleweight division is. Right? There's no other way where you say, we're fighting for the 160-pound championship, but both guys have to come in at 157. That simply doesn't work. Right? Doesn't work at all. Let me also say this too. You know, I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. Right? Saul Alvarez, apparently realizing the tough neighborhood that 154 pounds is. Right? Here's Eruslandi Lara. Here are the Charlo brothers. Here's Vanis Martirosyan. Right? You know, here's Andre. Right? Realizing that 154 is loaded. Right? It's loaded. Canelo has already announced, and this is the same guy who used to be a middleweight champion. He said, hey, I'm middleweight champion, but I'm not really a middleweight. You know, one wonders if Canelo's aware that Ezra Charles was a dominant light heavyweight, who decided to compete at heavyweight and then beat Joe Louis for the heavyweight championship. So the sport is replete with guys fighting out of their divisions. Right? Archie Moore, a dominant light heavyweight champion. And keep in mind, I'm not talking about cruiserweight. I'm talking about a weight class with a 175 limit. You know, Archie Moore insisted on fighting heavyweights. Not just heavyweights. Archie Moore fought Marciano and Ali. Historically damn good heavyweights. Right? Guys like Archie Moore didn't complain. You know, say, hey, I'm fighting Rocky Marciano, but hey, I'm not really a heavyweight. No, you want the heavyweight title. You need to go get it. Canelo decided, hey, I'm a middleweight titleist. I don't want it. Right? I don't want it. I'm not really a middleweight. Well, now, after his last fight, right, after beating Liam Smith, he's announced that might be his last fight at 154. Hey, player, why were you fighting Liam Smith when Golovkin was prepared to risk his middleweight titles for you? If you're not a junior middle, right? If you're having problems making 154 and you're not a middleweight, then what are you? Right? Maybe we should call him Saul Alvarez, catchweight. Right? The bottom line is, really the champions shouldn't be tolerating this. I want champs to draw a hard line. I want guys to say, look, man, if you want to fight me for my middleweight title, then I'm here. If you want to fight at some other weight class, right, some other weight class, well, good luck with that. We're not fighting for my title. Right? So, let me say this too about Floyd Mayweather, and people need to fully get this. Legacy is extremely important to boxing. Why? Because, of course, we have weight classes, right? I can look at Stanley Ketchel, who dropped a heavyweight champion, Jack Johnson, in a fight, right? And I can say, gee, does he compare to Carlos Monzon, a middleweight champion generations later, right? Well, legacy is really important to boxing. Now, only one man officially has beaten Saul Alvarez, right? That's Floyd Mayweather. People need to understand that all the good things that Canelo does going forward is going to reflect favorably on Floyd Mayweather, right? If Canelo continues to go on a tear and continues to win fights like he did this last one against a champion, dropping him on a body shot, right, after dropping him earlier in the fight, right, then we're going to say, wow, who could beat Canelo? Then you're going to think back to the fact that Floyd Mayweather beat Canelo, right? This is just like the Lennox Lewis-Vitaly Klitschko dynamic, right? Lewis beats Klitschko. Klitschko goes on to several more years of dominance. And then you're thinking, wow, who could beat this guy? Then you think, oh, that's right, a guy did. Right? Without the torn shoulder injury that gave Chris Bird a victory over Vitaly. Right? A guy actually beats Vitaly. Right? We could say, okay, it's because of an eye injury Vitaly suffered in that fight. But that's a little bit more caused by the other fighter than a torn shoulder. We can get into that another time. But let's just say when you beat a guy, Mike McCallum, beating Julian Jackson, who was a terror, right? Boxing Hall of Famer. Then Jackson goes on to dominance for years. That really shined a great light back on McCallum, didn't it? Right? So Floyd really has a vested interest in Canelo doing well. He doesn't gain anything if Golovkin destroys Canelo. He gains if Canelo beats Golovkin. Then, right, casual fans are going to say, oh, Floyd could have beaten Golovkin. Right, because Canelo beat Golovkin, right? You know the way things work. Certainly Floyd's legacy is not hurt by Canelo going on to have a dominant career. So I'm not surprised that Floyd thought Canelo beat Miguel Cotto in a fight that I didn't think he did. Okay. And I'm not surprised that Floyd now is supporting Canelo in Canelo's push for a catchweight for his fight with Golovkin. Now, don't get me wrong. I know the Canelo people now are saying, oh, we're prepared to fight at 160. I know they're saying, hey, we made a contract offer. Right? Look, just understand there's a lot of PR spin out there. Guys who want to avoid you here, you've signed to fight someone else, and suddenly, here's the contract offer. Right? We wouldn't be hearing the storyline of Canelo's not really a middleweight. He wouldn't be abdicating his middleweight crown, his share of the middleweight title, if he was willing to fight Golovkin today at middleweight. One man's opinion. Let me continue. Right? Something really special happened in Japan recently, and we need to, give this guy a big hand. This is really strong stuff. In fact, it deserves a standing ovation. Let me stand up a bit. In Japan, you had a championship fight with open scoring, right? Let me also say, too, I hate open scoring, but that's my own thing. The champion, in a spirited matchup, after 8 rounds, Hugo Ruiz was losing on 2 of the cards, but was winning on the 3rd card. In other words, there was a judge who thought that Ruiz was at least competitive in the fight. Actually had Ruiz winning the fight. At the end of the 9th round, Ruiz retired, gave up his title sitting on the stool, just like Sonny Liston did in the first Ali fight. Right? Think about that. The reason he gave up his title is because a guy who first became a champion in 2009, right, at bantamweight, who now is in his mid-30s, who had suffered through car crashes against people like Kiko Garcia, was in there giving the champion all he could handle, was actually ahead on the scorecards against a champion with a big punch, was outboxing the champion, was using veteran savvy and ring know-how to rejuvenate his career at super bantamweight, right? Azumi Hasegawa is now the WBC super bantamweight champion because of a great performance against Hugo Ruiz, who, even though he was in the fight on 1 scorecard, understood he had nothing left, right? This is one of the bigger accomplishments of this year, right? Let's applaud Azumi Hasegawa. He's in his mid-30s, folks. He is the super bantamweight champion. He's earned it. He literally got a champion to give up his crown on the stool at the end of the 9th round, knowing that he was in the fight on 1 judge's scorecard. Let me shift gears. This is my final storyline of this video. I'm really surprised, impressed, quite frankly, by all the love Kell Brook is getting following his performance against Golovkin. Right now, first, let me say, I have the utmost respect for Kell Brook. The utmost. Right? Guys who are unbeaten champions. And understand, he came to America and fought Sean Porter over here. Right? Unbeaten champion. To move up 2 weight classes, to take on a dominant champion, right? He didn't try to get the middleweight title by entering in the back door, right? No, he takes on the guy who, rightly or wrongly, is perceived in the public as the dominant middleweight champion, right? The guy with one of the biggest punches in boxing. For the record, by the way, there's another guy with a huge punch who's middleweight champion, Danny Jacobs. He just doesn't get the public adulation of Golovkin. But let's just say Kell Brook, I have the utmost respect for a guy who's willing to take on a big challenge, right? Who wants to enter the room through the front door, right? Who did not ask for a catch weight, right? No catch weight in this fight. Had he won the fight, we'd be calling him the middleweight champion of the world, not the 157-pound champion of the world. Right? Now, I have a lot of respect for that. Well, I'm surprised. Andre Ward, one of boxing's very best, has said that the tape of the Kell Brook Golovkin fight shows you why Golovkin didn't want to fight him. Right? You know, Ward is basically saying that Brook showed you flashes in that fight that indicate that Golovkin would have lost to Andre Ward. Now, I understand that the judges gave Kell Brook 2 rounds. Right? I understand that. But wow, you know, was the fight really that close, folks? Understand, Golovkin is a knockout puncher. Right? He's in the ring to stop you. That's his goal. Right? If he has a fight against you and he stops you in the first half of the fight, in fact, the fight ends with the other guy's corner throwing in the towel. How's that anything other than a magnificent performance, especially when, as far as I could tell, Golovkin had no marks on him. Right? There was a broken eye socket. The other guy had it. I thought Kell Brook got beaten up and stopped in 5 rounds. Right? Understand, too, we all knew going into the fight that Golovkin will take some punches to land some punches. Right? We all knew that. I think this is really a case of no one rooting for Goliath. Are we really going to criticize Golovkin that much in a fight where the towel is tossed in the 5th round? Are there any other fights that you're aware of where a corner tosses in a towel in the 5th round, right, as early as the 5th round, and you thought, man, am I impressed with the guy whose corner tossed in the towel? Right, when I hear a towel is tossed in the 5th round, I'm thinking, wow, you know, dude got spanked. That's what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking like these guys are thinking of, oh man, you know, this tape shows the blueprint on how to beat Golovkin. No. This tape shows the blueprint on how to fracture your eye socket and how to, you know, have your corner stop the fight in the 5th round. Right? With all due respect to Kell Brook, if Kell Brook fought Golovkin again, I'd be more certain than I was before the first fight that Golovkin's going to win it. Let me close, too, by saying this. Canelo fractured his hand. I've heard differing reports. One has it being a fractured finger. You need to really pay close attention to that, because a boxer's hands are really his tools. Canelo is one of the hardest punchers in the sport of boxing. He really relies on big punches, power punches, right? He's going to be out of the ring for a while. Understand, too, that when your hands are fractured, you're not really able to spar and stuff like that the way you want to. Canelo is probably not going to get back in the ring before next, I'd say March or April at the earliest. Right? At the earliest. So just food for thought. So when you hear Canelo say, hey, I'm prepared to fight Golovkin right now, right? Just understand that he's really talking about next spring. You know the way boxing works, too, right? There's certain weekends that are big weekends in boxing. Cinco de Mayo is a big weekend in boxing, right? Cinco de Mayo, that's May 5th, right? Don't expect to see Canelo. It's September 20th as I make this video. Don't expect to see Canelo back in the ring at any time during the next 6 months, right? Just food for thought. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.